In Europe, railway enthusiasts commonly bemoan the loss of the great steam locomotives, as they were replaced mostly by electric and diesel power. Across the Atlantic, though, one nation showed the world how diesel power could be used to replace steam by introducing the most iconic diesel locomotives in the world. It were the United States of America who convinced the world that instead of steam locomotives of all shapes and sizes, a handful of diesel types could run the same railroads far more efficiently. And what diesels paved the way for that to happen? Or laid the rails, I guess. The Electromotive Division E unit. The American Bulldog nose is an icon of railroads all over the world. Show people an image of a large diesel locomotive with a protruding nose with a headlight high up on the bonnet, and they can immediately trace it back to the railroads of the States. From the United Kingdom to Scandinavia to India, the look is all derived from the product of General Motors. And whilst the F units are definitely far more commonly thought of as the American diesel locomotive, these Bobo locos were a development of the first dedicated passenger diesel locomotives, the EMC EA. These massive A1A locomotives, delivered to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in 1937, had a power output of 1800 horsepower, delivered by two Winton 210 prime movers. Winton? The classification followed a simple principle. EMC were the builders, Electromotive Corporation, E stood for 18, as in 1800 horsepower, and A denoted whether it was a cab or a booster unit. A were cab units, and B were cabless booster units used to, boost a cab unit. Mechanically identical EA and EB units would be built for the Atchison, Topeka and Santa Fe Railway, more commonly known as just the Santa Fe, though curiously these units would be classified as E1A and E1B. These units would also be delivered later in 1937. Other deliveries of EAs and EBs in 1937 were to the Union Pacific Railroad, the Chicago Northwestern Railway and the Southern Pacific Railroad. And, you guessed it, these were classified E2. Oh no. The experiences of these three virtually identical classes were all incorporated into an uprated machine, producing 2000 horsepower, which debuted in September 1938 as the E3 units. Why they were still known as E units and not T units is beyond me. These locos would be ordered in small numbers, again by the Union Pacific, Chicago Northwestern and Santa Fe, as well as the Atlantic Coast Railroad, the Chicago, Rock Island and Pacific Railroad, the Florida East Coast Railroad, the Kansas City and Southern Railway, and the Missouri Pacific Railroad. The E3s differed from the 1800 horsepower E models, other than in power output of course, by having a better prime mover and by being the definite production class of the previous models. Retaining the A1A-A1A bogie configuration, these models were, again much like the previous E units, used for prime passenger trains. Their unpowered centre axles on each bogie were mitigated by the whopping 157-ton weight of the total unit, with the greater mass aiding in adhesion. This success, achieved through a still relatively early diesel loco, was carried through to a total of 9 E subdivisions, the only major difference between the E3 to E9 models being the less slanted front end of the E7 onwards. Previously, it had been a shovel nose design, and the E7 onwards were a bulldog nose design. And whilst the E's across all subdivisions only totalled 1,121 cab units, as opposed to the F units' astonishing 4,765 cab units, these Bobo locos were merely a freight development of the E passenger locos, and the Fs just so happened to also work fine on passenger workings. But 1,100 members of one class still brings along one major advantage: economy of scale. Once the first few E units had proven themselves a success, more E's would be built, which makes manufacturing of spares more economical, as you have a larger pool of locos to use the spares on. Ease of economy where repairs are concerned means that following builds of a similar pattern would not be hamstrung by the same standardization problems which killed a lot of Europe's early diesel prototypes. Whichever way you slice it, the E units were the first incarnation of the mainline diesel as we know it today. A lineage which, one could argue, is now carried on by the Class 66 in Europe, even though that is a freight loco. I think we should give more respect to the E units, and not just view them as the reason steam went silent. In this semi-intended trilogy of looking at early A1A diesels, my goal was to showcase A1As weren't just a poor railway's COCO, or free powered axle bogie arrangement. Perhaps it doesn't help my case that between a missed opportunity, a bureaucratic compromise, and a downright success, the former two were European. And certainly the benefit of the E-unit A1As was the economy of scale. The USA might be a massive country, but by all accounts, their railroads operated basically as their own ecosystems. Although some types were shared between railroads, generally a homebrew locomotive of the New York Central Railroad wouldn't be at home on the Union Pacific Railroad. With lower torque owing to fewer powered axles, which brings along with it a lower power to weight ratio, and just generally being very early examples of diesel power, most A1As would pale in comparison to their COCO equivalents. An early E unit could produce 1800 horsepower, but a British Deltic Class 55 easily doubled that at 3300 horsepower. Another advantage I haven't mentioned up until this point was that A1As give you a lot more space to arrange the bogies. With one axle devoid of traction motors, you have a lot more room to fit the same gear which, after a few years of experience, was easily crammed into a Bobo or two powered axle bogie arrangement a few years later. Being a pioneer isn't easy, and the E units did the right thing at the right time whilst also being backed by a too big to fail policy. I'm not saying the E's wouldn't have been a success without the economy of scale in their favour, but it was a definite snowballing effect. If the Western region had just built more D600s, and the standardisation policy had to face up against the massive economy of scale that would have presented, maybe the clatter of a diesel electric generator rolling through Britain's hills would instead have been the hum of hydraulic transmission. Thanks for watching. These 3 videos were made as an opportunity to take a look into diesel locos I found rather interesting, even if 2 of them weren't ultimately successful, without having to make a TGL episode about them. I think that if this is something I can keep up, TGL might be truly dead, but I find these a worthy substitute. Let me know what you think. Either way, I hope to see you in the next video. Cheerio!